Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are moving on to the next episode in my category breakdown series, and in today's video we are taking a look at best makeup and hairstyling. Now if you're new to this series, this video is going to be in a playlist with all of the other episodes of this award season so far, but basically all it is just for the last 3 years I've taken a look at every single individual category at the upcoming Academy Awards, and we break the category down to where we talk about all 5 of the nominees in each of the category. We talk about the individual members that are nominated alongside the film in that category, so today we're talking about both the makeup and hairstylists that are nominated alongside the film. We talk about their history a little bit, their Oscar nomination history, as well as just previous films that they've worked on in the past. And then at the end, I give you my personal ranking for how I would rank them, pretty much how I would vote for them, from 1 to 5. And then I give you my prediction for how likely it is that I think they win the Academy Award on March 15th. And without further ado, let's take a look at the nominees.
Frankenstein.
This is the first Oscar nomination for all 3 of Mike Hill, Jordan Samuel, and Cleona Fury. All 3 have worked with Guillermo del Toro previously on Nightmare Alley in 2021, and Mike Hill and Jordan Samuel worked with him on The Shape of Water in 2017. Frankenstein won for Best Makeup and Hairstyling at the BAFTAs and the Critics' Choice Awards. It seems like this has been happening a little bit, where we're starting off some of these categories with the heavy hitter, the front runner, the obvious winner up top, so it kind of doesn't give a whole lot of surprise to the rest of the video if you're completely clueless as how the category is going to go, but Frankenstein is going to win Best Makeup and Hairstyling. It is the obvious winner here, solely, because this is the fun thing with like makeup and hair, is because anytime you get a film like this that's a period piece, there is a whole lot that you can kind of attribute to the hairstyling of getting everyone that it's in, Mia Goth specifically, but, even like all the men as well, even though if it's shorter hair, but still kind of getting that hairstyle. I guess technically Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster, the creature, has long hair, but mostly for the women getting like the hair right in the specific period, like that is something that is technically part of the category. It's obviously not what's like being voted for here. It's not what's winning. What's winning here is the prosthetic work, the amazing design that they came up for the creature, for Jacob Elordi's Frankenstein's monster, like everything that they put in for him. And I believe I wish I would have double checked and like looked this up, but I saw something that was talking about like the length of time that Jacob Elordi was like in makeup, and it was like an absurd. I want to say it was like over 8 hours or something. Like it was like I can't imagine how long he was just sitting there, like, getting in makeup, and then having to then go shoot a bunch of scenes, because I'm sure they didn't, like, just have him there for 8 hours. They shot one scene, and he took it all off, and then came back the next. Like, it was probably these long days where he was just spending so much time in the makeup chair getting this look right. And I think that's the most impressive, like, because obviously Jacob Elordi himself is a good actor and is giving a great performance in the film, but so much of his character and so much of like what makes it great is the look. It is the design of Frankenstein's monster. It is the scene where the best example, the best scene, is the scene where Mia Goth is going down into kind of like the basement, like the dungeon area, essentially, is what kind of like what it is, with like has like the water running through it, and he's down there, and he just kind of has like the bandages on is basically all he's wearing, so you get to see the entirety of his of the makeup work everywhere else, and especially because that is the scene of Mia Goth discovering him and kind of examining him and trying to figure out what he is, and he's kind of sticking out his arms, and she's looking at his arms, and then she's kind of running his hand on his chest and his stomach because he's got all the cuts and from the surgeries and stuff bringing him to life, and so she's running up and kind of has some blood on on like the cut in the middle and asking who hurt you. Like, that entire scene is just basically a showcase for how great this makeup is, and it's great because I can't remember exactly how long it is, but like the film, from when he's created to the end of the film, like there's a good chunk of time that goes by, and in that large chunk of time that goes by, like he starts getting older. His face gets more cracked, more cuts, more scars, more everything. Like he is getting older, as a person, as a creation. Like, and so the makeup, it kind of varies along as the film goes on. I think it's a beautiful look. It's clearly, I think makeup, for some reason, it happens to be I guess like the Elvis year. It was like Elvis and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, right? That was like the last year that I think like makeup had been kind of like a toss up. For the most part, every year there's always kind of one runaway, one film that just absolutely dominates the category, and that's what Frankenstein's done this year. For my personal rank, I'm putting Frankenstein in first, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in first.
Kokuo.
This is the first Oscar nomination for all three of Yoko Tokugawa, Naomi Hibino, and Tadashi Nishimatsu. Kokuo wasn't nominated at any other precursor. And first off, apologies for butchering the pronunciation of the film. It was one of those that when I was seeing this, first off, I'm very lucky that I was able to even see this. I was one day just kind of searching on my phone, and I just found there was one theater like near me that had an 11:30 a.m. showing, and it just happened to be a day that I was kind of, didn't have to be at work, and so I just was somehow able to first off find a showtime for this. This was one of the last. There's only like maybe one or two other kind of tricky ones I'm still trying to find to watch. This was one of the difficult ones, so glad I was able to actually see it. But when I was seeing it, when I was watching in theaters and looking at the subtitles, every time the name was said, it definitely was not sounding at all like how I was reading it, how like I'm reading it in English. And so, apologies, I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation. Should have looked up a little bit more of how to correctly pronounce that. But this has been the film I've struggled with the pronunciation this entire award season. So apologies for that. But talking about the actual makeup design of the film, I think it's very fascinating. And I think what's very interesting with this film is that it just starts off right away with showing off the makeup. Now, this is another thing I know I'm probably going to completely butcher this as well, but they are kabuki actors, and so they do like essentially these stage plays where it's like interpretive, like dancing, as well as kind of the obviously they're reciting their lines and stuff, and I believe it's the Japanese style of art that unfortunately I'm just not very familiar with at all. But the big part of it, and they kind of talk about in the beginning, that girls aren't allowed to, at least at this time they weren't allowed to perform in it, and so it's a bunch of guys are playing all the girl roles, and so they're wearing the super white makeup in order to, that's just how I think they all kind of look while they're on the stage. That's just the makeup of this style of art, this acting that they do. And so the opening scene is our character painting himself this super bright white, in the paint, and then putting on the, kind of the red, lipstick and the red eyeliner, like everything so they stand out and so that they pop out on the stage. And I'm watching this, and like that's the opening scene, and I'm like, okay, I totally see how this would get like an Oscar nomination, right? Like, this is so beautiful. This is so like so much work and so much like care is being put into this, the makeup for this, right? And that's the opening scene. There is probably about 75 more scenes in this film where they're taking off the makeup, applying the makeup. Like, there's multiple scenes where they're in the I guess you call it like a dressing room or whatever, but they're sitting down and they're looking in their mirror and they're all getting painted up, and there's like 7 of them, and they're all at various stages of applying the makeup. And so you're seeing some, like, in the moment of as they're putting this on, you see someone's already got it completely on, someone's like halfway there, and so it's like this cool thing that you get to see so many different stages of how this makeup looks, and then you get to see the completed the completed version of it, which is obviously it's just like stunning. It's a very impressive makeup work, and this film is like a tick under 3 hours. It is a long film, and again, for the entirety of the film, essentially for the most part, it's just a lot of these actors in this makeup or coming out of the makeup or putting it on in the next scene. Like, it's not just a scene where like the film is built around an hour or so away from the stage and away from acting, and then they come back and maybe it's one big scene, and so you kind of get the makeup there. Like, that is just the scene as them kind of coming in and out of performing, and maybe there's a little bit stretch here where they're not performing, but then they're right back to the stage and someone's on stage performing and in the full makeup every time. And so it's very beautiful. It's one of those, like, if you can find the film, if you watch the film, like, just for whatever your opinion maybe is of the story, that's whatever, but like just to witness the makeup design of this is just so beautiful and absolutely worth the time of watching this film. For my personal rank, I'm putting Kokuo in third, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in fourth.
Sinners.
This is Ken Diaz's third Oscar nomination. He was nominated in 1996 for My Family and in 1990 for Dad. This is Mike Fontaine's second Oscar nomination. He was nominated in 2023 for The Batman. This is Shunika Terry's first Oscar nomination. Sinners was nominated for Best Makeup and Hairstyling at the BAFTAs and the Critics' Choice Awards. And Sinners is another interesting one here where there's two kind of things we can talk about. The first thing we can talk about is, again, this is a period piece it's not, as far back as something like Frankenstein, but it's a period piece. It's set in a very specific time. And so, again, with our men making sure that just the makeup, the basic, actor makeup that they've got on is great. But for the female characters, for our women in the film, they do an excellent job of, again, kind of getting the hair, getting the makeup, making it all look great for this specific era of, the South. And really kind of creating these characters so when everything's totally normal, when everything's fine, like, it's still impressive. Makeup work, it's obviously not on its own there. That's not what's getting it the nomination. What is getting it the nomination is a little bit of a spoiler, and so this is one of those, I'm not going to get into too many specifics exactly of like specific characters or whatnot, but kind of a general spoiler of what the film is like about if you somehow haven't seen the film but also haven't seen a trailer, because the trailer also just gives you this spoiler that obviously it's a vampire film, so that there are scenes and there are moments where characters are being attacked and are being killed, and the makeup design on all of these characters is just really, impressive. The way that it is, the disfiguration of some characters, whether it's be their face or their chest or just kind of like whatever body part happened to kind of be mutilated at the time, like the making that is very, great prosthetic work, very impressive. But there's also a lot of it is in terms of like more like the makeup. It's not necessarily a prosthetic, but it's vampires, so there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of biting and sucking blood from the victims, and so the characters will have a lot of just kind of the ones that turn vampires will have kind of the blood like on their mouths or kind of stained. Obviously not really makeup anymore when it's stained on the clothes and stuff, but there is a whole lot of kind of just blood that is a big part of this design. There's also kind of one scene at the end. Again, I'm not going to talk about the specific character or like what happens at all, but there is a character that at the end they're kind of being killed, and like it's not a big long scene, but it's kind of this brief moment where you get to see this great makeup design of this character's demise. Like, it's just so impressive and really kind of part of what makes this film, like, there's large stretches when I watched this for the first time, because again, obviously it's a vampire film. Going in, you knew it was a vampire film from the trailer, but then when you're watching it, it's about halfway through the movie before there's even a hint of like vampires being a thing in the film. It's just one of those, I just so wish the trailers wouldn't have spoiled that, because again, it's like it's halfway through the movie and all of a sudden vampires come, and so it's one of those that I'm like watching this, I know vampires are coming, but at the same time I'm kind of like having such a great time with this and with the film, to where I'm like, I feel for these characters and I feel for them individually, that I'm just like, it's gonna be even harder to see when this starts happening. And so to kind of have this film that almost isn't completely a horror film at the first half and then turns into this horror and turns into a bloody and kind of these bodies are kind of getting mutilated a little bit, and the makeup design of making them all look different, it's just real impressive, and it really kind of created this fun kind of immersion, this fun experience really watching the film. For my personal rank, I'm putting Sinners in fourth, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in second.
The Smashing Machine.
This is Kazuhiro's sixth Oscar nomination. He won in 2020 for Bombshell, and in 2018 for The Darkest Hour. He was also nominated in 2024 for Maestro, in 2008 for Norbit, and in 2007 for Click. This is the first Oscar nomination for both Glenn Griffin and Bjorn Rebin. The Smashing Machine was nominated for Best Makeup and Hairstyling at the Critics' Choice Awards. Now, The Smashing Machine is one of those that I have said on my channel, I've said it in my Letterboxd review of the film, that I'm not the biggest fan of the film in general, but what I'm a massive fan of is the makeup work. It is just done so beautifully in this film. It's really kind of essentially just The Rock. Like, again, like Emily Blunt is going to have your typical, makeup and making sure that the hairstyling is all good. But what is getting the attention with this film, what is getting it nominated, is the makeup design, the prosthetic work of turning The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, into Mark Kerr, I believe is the character's name, turning him into him. And it's one of those that I've seen a lot of people that, especially when like the trailers came out, or even when the film first came out, that a lot of people were kind of saying like, "Oh, The Rock's unrecognizable," and there's definitely like shots where like or moments of the film where you do just kind of lose him. But for me, as I'm watching, there's times I can see I'm like, okay, well that's The Rock. Like I can tell who I'm watching, but the makeup is still done so excellently that it's like it's a little, you question it. You're kind of looking at it and you're like, oh, it doesn't seem like him. And so it does. It's a great job of kind of this transformative performance and getting him into this new person. And I think what's also just impressive of that, and the biggest thing, and the reason that I think that this is amazing, is there's probably some films where you have a character that goes through kind of a transformation, right? And he is in all of this makeup and is doing like something completely different. And there's films that when they do that, and maybe it looks good, but they probably have that character stationary. It's for for a few scenes. It's very kind of maybe a moment of the film, and they're going to be restricted in what they can do because they're under. I can't imagine how many pounds of just like prosthetic makeup. This is different in the sense that it is the entirety of the film. Like he is constantly in this prosthetic work and changing his appearance and changing like essentially to a new person. Not only is it for the duration of the film, he's the main character, he's on screen the entire time, and then C, the third point is it's an action movie. He's a fighter, and so he's constantly in action. He is moving, and so it's like the prosthetic work of being able to make it look good and make him look like he's this entirely new person, but then also make it so it doesn't just fall off, or like when he starts sweating that things kind of get unglued or whatever and start falling apart or whatever. Like the makeup, the way that they use this prosthetics, like the way it just stayed to him and stayed essentially altering his appearance, the fact that it stayed through all of this action, through the sweat, through everything for an extended period of time while he is on screen for so much of the movie is just so impressive. And so again, I'm maybe not the biggest fan of the movie in general. I feel like it was a pretty, especially, this probably isn't fair to kind of like know you're going into a Safdie brother film and like expect something and then kind of be like, oh, I guess they kind of played it safe, or because obviously we're now learning that maybe there's between Josh and Benny, like you can understand whose style is a little bit more whose now as they're going into their solo work. And so I maybe wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the story, but this makeup work is so impressive, and I'm just so glad that it was able to get the recognition here and get this nomination because it's absolutely deserved. For my personal rank, I'm putting The Smashing Machine in second, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in third.
And The Ugly Stepsister.
This is the first Oscar nomination for both Thomas Folberg and Anne Catherine Sauerberg. The Ugly Stepsister wasn't nominated at any other precursor. And The Ugly Stepsister is another one that is a film, first off, that I just hadn't heard of. And so if you haven't heard of this and you see the Oscar nomination, you want to check it out, I'd recommend seeking it out and finding the film. I will warn you that it is a body horror, which I kind of, from the poster, I kind of guessed that maybe that's what this was. And then I think it was on Letterboxd or it was on Hulu or something. It was like when I was like watching it, at some point it had the genres just listed as like drama, fantasy or something, and so then I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a horror. And then I'm watching it, and yeah, it is a body horror. Like I don't get very squeamish. There's a scene at the end. I had to look away. I was close to throwing up. It gets gross. And so it's one of those films that, again, I recommend you checking out if you have the stomach for it, obviously. But it's also interesting to say because it's another one of these that on my channel, especially in these these category breakdowns, I don't want to give too many spoilers for these films, because my hope is, again, always that someone who maybe isn't into the Oscars finds one of these videos and is just curious and watches it because they're wanting to just see, if they tune in on Sunday, what they're potentially getting into. They'll want to know a little bit about these films, and so I don't want to spoil it, because I want someone that hasn't seen it to discover this and then decide to seek it out. So we're not going to say exactly what happens, but we'll just say at the end there are a couple moments of changing and altering bodies to this is so hard to not just say it, to change the way that they look in order to fit into something, essentially. And so there's that scene, and then there's other moments with again, just some of the body horror, some of the stuff that's coming out of bodies and stuff that is this just very fascinating kind of. I'm assuming most of that's kind of visual effects stuff, but I'm sure there's some practical stuff and some makeup stuff that kind of goes into that and into kind of the altering. There is a scene, I think I'm kind of okay to talk about this, because especially it's part of the poster. She was wearing a thing on her nose. There's a scene where she kind of gets a nose job at the beginning, where that's just kind of fascinating. The way of kind of altering the nose. It's also, I think, a big part of the makeup of this is the title of the film is The Ugly Stepsister. It's a play, a dark reimagining essentially of Cinderella, and so you have the ugly stepsister that comes in, and it was funny because obviously it's is this Norwegian? I should have looked it up before, but it's from another country, and I wasn't familiar with any of these actors and actresses and stuff, and so I'm watching the beginning of the film, and then I kind of look up the actress that's playing the main character here, and she's like a model, right? She's the makeup that they use at the beginning to make her look ugly, even though she's not all that ugly in the beginning. Obviously ugly, I guess, compared to the other stepsister, but they have her in all of this different kind of makeup that's changing her appearance. Then she kind of gets the nose job, and then she gets some other work done. She gets and this is another kind of squeamish, hard to watch scene if you're sensitive to this kind of stuff. She's getting lashes kind of implement, different lashes, and so they've got a needle kind of going in and out in her eye that just kind of changes the appearance, kind of the makeup design on that to make her look different. And so it's you're going through all of these changes, and so it's our one character has maybe 4 or 5 different stages where she looks to varying degrees, and then as the film goes on, because she's doing all of this, trying to change the way she looks, trying to change the beauty standards, where it kind of is maybe perfect in the middle of the film, but then she kind of keeps going and keeps doing things, and so then she kind of gets worse for the wearer as it goes on to the end of the film. So she again goes through all these multiple stages of just how her appearance looks, and really it's the makeup design that's doing a whole lot of that heavy lifting of making that all look real and believable. And then obviously there's some moments at the end that I don't want to talk about where it's just great makeup work there, kind of some of the body horror elements. This is one of those that, again, this is definitely a film that's not going to be for everyone, but if you're into kind of, body horror, this is definitely a fun film to check out. For my personal rank, I'm putting The Ugly Stepsister in 5th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 5th. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of this category. What films are you rooting for? Do you think there's a chance that something could upset Frankenstein? Let me know all of that down below in the comments. And if you'd like to like this video and then subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future episodes in this series or any of the other series that I have going on my channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.